Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Maria Barbera, and I'm joined by Maddie over at Smith AI. We're really excited to get started. We are going to give a couple of minutes to anyone who might be running a little bit late or who, might have some trouble logging on. So we should be back on in just a couple of minutes. So just hang in there. Thank you. All right. Hi again, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging in there for a minute. Welcome to our webinar. Like I mentioned before, for anyone who might be new tuning in, my name is Maria Barbera, and I'm the marketing director at PracticePanther. And I am joined by Maddie Martin over at Smith.ai, who's an awesome virtual receptionist and client intake software. So we are definitely looking forward to talking to you guys about how virtual receptionists and really great processes in general can really revamp your firm and your client intake. So Maddie, if you're ready to get started, I'm definitely excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Maria. Today we're going to be talking about how to use virtual receptionists as part of a solo or small law practice to really kind of drive up productivity and professionalism and profitability, honestly, in your law firm. So I'm the head of marketing and partnerships for Smith AI, which is a call routing and virtual receptionist service for small businesses. And frankly, we work with primarily attorneys. So we do have a specialty in that area. And this is just to say, why I'm someone who can speak on this topic. I've been doing digital marketing and working with small businesses for the last decade on, everything from content marketing, SEO, events, and a lot of business processes in relation to capturing leads and converting them to clients. Maria, do you want to talk a little bit about your background? Maria already introduced herself, so I will just continue on. But Maria is the marketing director at PracticePanther, which is law practice management software. Let's talk about our goals and objectives during this hour session. What you're going to learn is how to better manage response times to clients and potential clients, how to kind of craft the best lead qualification questions, and how to standardize and outsource them. The optimal workflow for new client intake, leveraging software that you have, both law practice management software, intake software, and calendaring software. Also, how to leverage virtual receptionists, obviously the topic of this webinar, for inbound and outbound calls with potential clients. So improving the responsiveness, improving the filtration before they actually get to you, basic process improvements so that you can use your time for the tasks that are really lawyering and not so much laboring. So the goals would be that you increase productivity, your professionalism, and also earn more money. So who cares? Well, obviously you should, because your time is really valuable. And what we often find with solo and small firm attorneys, when I'm at events and I'm talking to clients or a receptionist service, what we really hear most often is that there are three core dilemmas. So the first is that interruptions are killing your productivity. Typically, it takes about 23 minutes to recover from an interruption, and attorneys on average are interrupted about 6 times a day. So if you think about that, that is like almost 2 hours a day of interruptions and recovery time. So you really want to minimize those. But the problem is that potential clients demand quick response times via phone or via email. So if you're trying to maximize lead capture, you kind of have to accept, if you're just a solo or small firm attorney without a big receptionist staff in-house, you have to accept certain interruptions so that you answer your phone and those potential leads don't go to voicemail, because what we know is that as soon as they hit voicemail, they're hanging up and then they're going to call the next firm, and whoever picks up first is generally the person who's going to be hired. Now, the second dilemma is technology. If you're at a big firm, you've got technologists, you have IT people who can help you set up software and services, set up your call routing, all of those things. But when you're at a small or solo practice, you know that you need technology because it makes you more efficient. But the dilemma is that you don't have that support. And you can't spend all day looking through documentation to figure out how to set things up, or how to set up Zapier, or an email forwarding program that connects with your marketing automation software. You want things that are simple, intelligent tools that are affordable for your practice. So it needs to be cheap also, but it needs to be easy to get up and running. The third dilemma is that you want more control over your practice. So what sort of methods, what sort of things are you instituting in your firm that allow you to maximize control of your work-life balance? Now, obviously, work-life balance is different for everybody. It doesn't necessarily mean working, 40 hours a week. But what may be the case is that at least you just want control over it. So no matter what hours you want to set for yourself, you want to make sure that you have control over it, and that work and inbound leads and new client business, you're feeling like you have a handle on what you're doing. And one of the ways to do so that we'll talk about is leveraging services like call routing and virtual receptionists. Maria, I don't know if you're able to mute your line, but we're hearing a little bit of feedback there.
My apologies. Yeah, I've been experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties on my end, so I'll go ahead and mute my microphone until I have some input into the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what does this mean? It means that, let me go back one slide, that oftentimes you get spread too thin. As a solo or small firm attorney, you are trying to do every single thing yourself. And a lot of the tasks, a lot of the time that, folks in your position are spending time on are admin tasks. So what that ends up doing is it leads to a reduced responsiveness to new leads. That's really where things fall by the wayside. And the problem is that we often find that the top reason for bar complaints, the top driving factor, is lack of responsiveness, actually. So it is something to take very seriously. This is more than just like, soft law practice management guidance. This is actually something that really has a business impact. And now, obviously, you also have limited resources, so you need to be careful where you're spending money. And also, if you're spending money on marketing and you're missing leads from those marketing channels, just consider the fact that you're driving up your marketing costs. Everything is going to come down to cost of the conversion, cost of the new client. So if you are spending money on marketing and you're letting those calls go to voicemail, you're doing yourself a disservice. The last thing is, as I mentioned, you're spending too much time on admin tasks like data entry, which is really not the best use of your time. You want to be spending as much time as possible practicing law. So better processes that incorporate software and services really help you filter and offload work so that you can get more ROI from your marketing efforts, and you can spend more time doing things that really contribute to your bottom line.
I do have a question here, Maddie, if you don't mind. When it comes to I know that you just mentioned filtering out, and I apologize if there's feedback on my mic. I'll try to keep it quick. But when it comes, okay, perfect. When it comes to filtering out clients, for a law firm, do systems like this determine the filters that a law firm should use, or do they kind of just incorporate criteria that are predetermined by the firm based on what they're looking for?
That's a very good question. So we always go with the attorney's preferences and their specific criteria. Obviously, if someone is starting out and they need a little bit of guidance, we do have deep expertise in the legal industry, and we can make recommendations for initial questions that will help filter leads. Oftentimes we find that, people who haven't used virtual receptionist services in the past, they say, oh, really, I'm the only person who can filter my leads. But oftentimes we find that there is a happy medium where we're not over filtering, but we are able to say, like, okay, are you in the right county? Are you calling about the right practice area? Did you call a personal injury attorney, but in fact, what you need is a divorce attorney? Because frankly, and we all know, as you get more into marketing online and drive up SEO, organic search visitors are not the same as people who are referrals. Referrals know what you do. Organic search visitors are not doing the diligence and the research to make sure that your firm, when they find you online because of a content piece or because of really excellent SEO or paid search ads, they may not have filtered down enough to make sure that they're contacting the right attorney. So we will work with, and any good virtual receptionist service should work with, the custom criteria that is specific to your firm. Even sometimes asking questions like, the typical range of fees is going to be this for this type of service. I mean, people are even moving to flat fees for divorce and things like that. So, if the more information you're able to equip the receptionist service with within reason, so the time of the call is not excessive, then I would recommend you do so, because then they can take as much care as possible to filter down those leads to those who are most likely to hire you. And then that's who gets scheduled on your calendar for a callback or even a warm transfer or a first-time consultation. Obviously, another way to filter, and I'll talk about this later, is to charge for consultations. I was just talking to one of our clients the other day. She charges $400 for a first-time consultation because that sets the expectation about how much it's going to cost you to get a divorce with her firm. So, definitely. I think that it has to be custom, but we can provide guidance. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you for clearing that up. That's definitely great to hear.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, what are the solutions to these dilemmas that we're talking about? Well, you need cost-effective and efficient systems as a solo or small firm attorney. So you want to be routing and tracking your calls. And keep in mind, a lot of this comes down to communications, effective communications. So you want to be routing your calls. When the phone rings, is there a path for the calls so that the most important calls are connected to you or to a receptionist service, and less important calls, maybe they are directed to, a different path, or for after hours, you have certain specific messages that play. You also can route your emails. You can make sure that web visitors see certain messaging, certain specific phone numbers, so that okay, this person is calling in from this number that's on this landing page on my website. I know this is likely a new visitor and not an existing client. It also involves filtering that we just talked about, and we'll talk later about what to do with bad leads who don't meet your criteria. Intake, so how are you handling the preliminary and then the complete intake? And scheduling, so how are you efficiently handling callbacks and appointments? Are you charging for consultations? Most importantly, are you allowing people to book appointments with you online? Because that can be the single most, call reducing thing that you can do, is just allow people on your website to click to an online calendar that connects to your Google or iCalendar or Outlook calendar. And then you're able to have people book time with you directly, or have receptionists have access to your calendar, so that you're not getting these calls for people who already know, they're gonna book a consultation with you. So Maria, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about this slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we just talked a lot about kind of determining what processes are most effective as far as client intake and making sure that you're qualifying the right leads and clients for your services. And I think that it's important to accompany efficient intake processes with efficient practice management services that will allow your clients to really experience a consistently high degree of service and of customer service as from the moment they start engaging with your firm. And I think that a virtual receptionist service is an incredible way to make sure that your client intake process is not just as pleasant for the client, but as streamlined and efficient for your firm as possible. And we want to keep that trend of providing excellent customer service and providing streamlined solutions for your firm's internal processes throughout the entire process of handling a client's case. So the best way to do that and the most efficient way to do that is to go look towards a solution that's going to automate your workload in your firm. And when I say that, I mean look to a solution that is extremely intuitive to use when it comes to practice management software. Look for something with features that are customizable and that will fit the specific needs of your firm. Something like customizable invoices, especially if you're a larger or even medium-sized firm. If you have a variety of attorneys or practice areas, look towards custom invoices because this will allow you to immediately bill your clients according to the methods that are necessary or preferable to your firm for a specific kind of matter. I definitely I definitely recommend looking towards automated workflow generation within your practice management software, because what this does is, depending on what kind of case comes in, let's say you're a family attorney and a divorce case comes in, having predetermined workflow templates within your practice management software means that as soon as a matter comes in and you determine that it's a divorce matter, an entire sequence of deadlines and events and documents and things that you need to do, as well as assignments for associates and paralegals within your firm to the relevant tasks that need to be completed for that case, those are automatically attached to that case and to your calendar, meaning that the same kind of streamlined, effortless, really effect that is being provided from the beginning with your virtual receptionist and scheduling your initial consultation and scheduling your appointments with an incoming client, those same efficient methods are going to be implemented throughout your engagement with that client. And it's also, of course, that's going to lend itself to client satisfaction, because if deadlines are being established automatically, then they're more likely to be met effortlessly, or at least with as little administrative and kind of redundant clerical work as needed in order to ensure that these deadlines are met. And that will in turn lend itself to a positive client experience, which will lead to organic, like you will organically be able to ensure that maybe a client who's had a positive experience with you is more likely to refer your firm to another client or to give you positive feedback, which will in turn generate more leads for you, who will then be funneled in through your virtual receptionist service through these automated intake procedures that you have. And it's sort of a self-perpetuating cycle of positive client experience. And when you have effective intake processes combined with a really strong practice management software solution, that's as easy to establish for your firm as possible.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maria. I think just to piggyback on that for a second, like one of the underlying things that you're implying, but I just want to say explicitly, is that when you have these automated workflows in place, it delivers consistency in your approach every time. And that is something where you can really rely on delivering client satisfaction and making sure that that process is the same. It makes your life a lot easier. Also, make sure that when you're looking at solutions that have law practice management, for your firm, that you are asking about whether or not they have an open API. And you don't need to have any technical knowledge or experience. Just remember that phrase and make sure you get a yes, because what it means is that you can use that software to play well with other software that you have. Every single piece of software that you use, whether it's intake or law practice management or your calendar. I mean, if you're blessed to have all of that within one system, that's wonderful. The receptionists are going to plug into that API. And after every call, whether it's a new client record, create a new record in your account. Existing client record, update that record and log the conversation, those call notes that the receptionist is writing out about what happened on the call, who this person is, what they need, basic details. That's going to be logged in your system automatically. So you're going to get, let's say, an email every time a new call comes in, so you're up to speed, but you don't have to be copying and pasting that information as like this grunt work every
Exactly.
evening at home and you're having a glass of wine. Like, you don't want to be copying and pasting from your email 20 times for every call that came in into your CRM. So it's really important that you have an API. So just log in your brain when you're looking at this law practice management software. Do you have an open API? Because that is the most critical thing. It will make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And if you do have some questions about, the term API, if you'd like to understand it a little bit further, we'll have our contact information at the end, but please feel free to email me and I can definitely put you in touch with an expert in-house here at PracticePanther who can explain to you not just the functionality of our API, which is very open and easy to work with, but APIs in general and the importance of looking to software solutions that offer you that.
That's a really nice service that you guys offer, Maria.
Thank you.
So yeah, we have a lot of content to go through, so we're just going to keep chugging along. And I will kind of speed through, I will say some of the next few slides because you will have access to this deck and I want to get to really like a lot of meaty content. So if I go quickly, it's because there's more, meaty stuff that I'm trying to get to. So the systems, they have to be affordable, they have to be customizable, they have to be easy to use and monitor. Like, it shouldn't take a huge training manual. And as much as possible, they should be comprehensive. So if you can find a law practice management tool that allows you to have your calendar in there and easy communication with email integration. If your billing is connected via API, so maybe you use LawPay or HeadNote or one of those services. I know that PracticePanther integrates with LawPay, and obviously other systems integrate very well with these solutions. Whatever you're doing, make sure that it's a comprehensive solution, because at the end of the day, the fewer software and services providers that you're working with, the better. And also, let's talk about, if you're using humans, they should have reasonable discretion, because you don't want the case to be that you're limiting their responsibilities because you don't feel comfortable with, for example, your receptionist handling certain basic questions for you or doing that lead qualification. If you're using a service like this, it needs to be trustworthy and reliable, and you need to feel like you can put as much on the shoulders of that software or service as possible. So that should be part of your criteria.
And just a quick question, Maddie, as far as discretion goes, how is it that attorneys can make sure that their firm's information is safe when it's being handled remotely?
Yeah, that's a really fantastic question. So whenever you're working with a receptionist services is something that you should ask, and there should be a good answer to. For Smith AI, which I can speak to, we have all of our receptionists sign a very strict NDA. There's also never any time when information, we're not obviously getting into matters about any case. We also will always pass information directly to the system of record. So if we're taking a payment, for example, for a client or a consultation, it goes straight into the LawPay invoice, right? So all that communication is secure, and there is never a point when we don't record any calls, for example. Everything is done in the way that you would expect it to be done. So yeah, it's very much a secure system, and we know that that's required not just for good business practices, but also the sensitivity to the majority of our clients who are attorneys.
Awesome. And, Maddie was really great and diligent about going over some of the key features that your system should have. I also want to do the same as far as your practice management software goes, and I'll speed through these because we definitely have some really interesting stuff to get into. But your software should absolutely be cost effective. And I think that there's a big difference between cost effectiveness and just being the lowest possible price. When I say cost effective, I mean your software should be comprehensive, intuitive, and automated enough to save you a lot of time that would otherwise have been spent in administrative or grunt work, as Maddie put it. So it should be increasing your billable time that's free to be directed towards actually practicing law. And that billable time, the time that you're now dedicating to actually doing your, the bulk of your job, that should be something that's generating more revenue for your firm. And your software is something that should be enabling that. So the cost of the software, be it monthly, be it annually, whatever format works best for your firm, should not touch the projected revenue that your firm will drive by having higher degrees of saved time. Your software, and I've mentioned this word a lot already in this presentation, but your software needs to be intuitive. It should have an easy onboarding process. Its customer service should always deliver. You should have a dedicated account manager who's an expert in your account and who will allow you to have a demonstration of the software one-on-one. You should be able to ask questions during your onboarding process. There has to be comprehensive support. There has to be comprehensive training, because your software should aim to make it as intuitive and easy an experience for you and the members of your firm to navigate it with minimal speed bumps. And your software, of course, should provide a pathway for your intake system to flourish. This means having an open API that allows let's say you do use virtual receptionists, it should have an API that allows your virtual receptionist to access the calendar that's managed by your software, to access your intake forms, to access all of these crucial pieces of your intake process that are found in one centralized database within your software. And of course, your software, final, very important thing, should be flexible and customizable according to the specific needs of your firm. Something to look for with this are, as I mentioned before, workflows that you can design, invoices that you can design, as well as a software that constantly rolls out features based on client demand, based on what its users are asking for. Also, software that allows you to create custom security roles for people throughout your firm, allows you to create customized fields within different matters and contacts based on the information that you need to add to each thing. So just definitely keep these 4 things in mind if you're shopping for software, or as you evaluate the software you currently have, because they're absolutely crucial.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. Those are all really good points. I think the customization is really when it comes down to whether or not this is going to work for your firm. So let's talk really briefly. This is, I'm just going to move this little thing right there. Okay, so let me go back. So lead to client conversion. Let's just get down to the basics for a second so that we're all on the same page before we move forward. There are lead sources. They can be online or offline. There are contact methods for those leads to get in touch with you. Then there are response methods for how you address the lead when they first get in touch with you. Then there's the qualification step. So which leads are good and which leads are not good. So who's a good fit for your firm? Who's going to hire you and who do you want to hire you? And then intake and scheduling. So the basic intake, how is that handled? Is it instant or is it, what I mean by instant is when you have that lead first on the call, are they going through directly contacting the attorney, or are they, getting a consultation on the calendar? If so, they've been an instant capture lead. Otherwise, they may be, once you get their basic information like their email and their phone number and what they need, and you do want them to hire you, but they don't schedule a consultation right away, this process may end up resulting in a marketing automation where they receive emails from you. And in those emails, they receive a link to schedule the consultation. So you give them more information, you share testimonials about your firm, you provide information about your expertise. All this kind of collateral, this content, these cases that show why they should hire you and not the other person. Follow-up calls can also be made. And obviously these emails can be automated. Now, once that lead converts, whether it's instant or delayed, then, obviously there's the full intake and they become a client. Now, down on the bottom, I also have qualification for bad leads, because what oftentimes happens is that attorneys will determine that a lead is not the right fit and then say, okay, goodbye, basically. But what is a better and more profitable in many ways solution, if you are comfortable with receiving referral fees and understand the rules within your state for accepting referral fees and how that may make you liable for certain things, which in some states it does, you can monetize those bad leads actually by instituting referral relationships with other attorneys who you respect, who have complementary services but not competitive services to your firm. And actually, one of the ways that you can leverage virtual receptionists here is by giving them a list of the criteria for obviously the good leads, and for the bad leads who don't meet the criteria, ask like provide the information that these are the firms in these circumstances that you recommend if you're not the right fit. And if you share that information and the lead does book the firm that you're recommending, then you can reap the referral fees from that referral, and as a result monetize something that would have been $0. They would have just hung up. And this is a way to really passively get more income. And sometimes these referral fees can be as much as 40%. So it's a significant amount of money that you're leaving on the table if you're not equipping your staff or your receptionist service with the information to make those referrals on your behalf. So let's talk about some terms. We're talking a lot about the communication channels. And what I want to make sure is that we're all on the same page here. So potential clients can reach you via those 4 methods that I said before: the phone, email, text, and website. Now, I also consider, for a lot of purposes, Facebook pages are turning into websites. So if there's Facebook chat, we're talking about website chat. Oftentimes those fill the same function. And obviously contact us forms on your site. So what does this look like for you? Well, this looks like there are a few different services that you're going to be using. You may have a landline, and we all know what a landline is. It's oftentimes a little bit more expensive because it's bundled with the internet. You're not going to get dropped calls, though. Then we have cloud internet-based phone services. Obviously, there are a lot of providers of this, so it's very inexpensive. And then the last service is actually SIP, which is a protocol that allows you to turn any internet-connected device into a phone. So what does that mean? It means that your computer can become a phone. It means that when you install these devices on your mobile phone, you can see which calls are coming in through certain numbers to determine, oh, is this a business call or is it a personal call coming into my cell phone? And these basically allow you to better monitor and make flexible your business, especially if you're working from home from a virtual office. Now, in terms of handling calls, there are multiple steps in how calls can be handled, obviously at different price points. Maria, if you don't mind muting your mic.
Oh, sure.
Thanks. So basically at the most basic level, there's going to be call routing, IVR, that menu that plays that says, hi, thank you for calling. You've reached ABC Law Firm. Press 1 for new clients, 2 for existing clients, or press 1 for Joe and 2 for Jamie. However you have that set up. Now, that's a nice professional experience, but it's very basic. Beyond that, we're going to be seeing, call centers, and then beyond that, virtual receptionists. So the closer that you want to get to an in-house experience, obviously you're going to be paying a little bit more, but you're getting a lot more out of it. So obviously with a menu, it's just a recording that plays. If you have an answering service or if you have a call center, it's going to feel very scripted. It's pretty transparent that you're using a call center. If you're using a virtual receptionist, now you're getting a lot more things out of that. You're getting, inbound and hopefully outbound calls as well. You're getting workflows where you can actually have that person empowered to make decisions. So qualifying leads, booking appointments, actually getting work done and not just taking messages and transferring calls, which is a very important distinction when you're looking at some of these services and they charge very low per minute rates versus Smith AI, which charges per call. Other virtual receptionist services charge per minute. You may find that what you're getting, even though you may be paying a little bit more, actually allows you to not be spending your time on tasks. And let's face it, your time is worth a lot of money. Now, let's talk about regular humans versus optimized humans, right? So what are the most optimal situations for a virtual receptionist service? You want people who are domestic. You want US-based agents who are familiar with American norms and business practices. You want distributed receptionists and not dedicated, because it allows you to have your phone answered by anyone in the team at any time. So if your marketing or your call volume increases, then you're able to have people ramp up and not be trained to have a new receptionist on your team, which is obviously going to incur a delay. Remote versus in-house. So, Obviously when you have virtual receptionists, you're not paying for a salary, for benefits, for them to have lunch and coffee in the office, for them to have, other supportive things that cost a lot of money. Also, you have the lack of flexibility. So obviously, if you have a virtual receptionist service, you have the ability to have your calls answered by multiple people. You also probably have extended hours. It's very typical to have at least a 12-hour day for virtual receptionist services, and you get the benefit of the technology behind these services as well, which I will talk about momentarily. So some of the things to look out for with these services, we do find, now we've answered almost 500,000 calls. We do find that there are ring delays, and oftentimes our clients will tell us, how do we prevent this ring delay? Obviously, sometimes it involves moving to a different, VoIP phone service. So be very careful and test your phone systems often. I was just talking to a client the other day who said that his 1-800 number was giving a busy signal, and he didn't know until a client told him. And how many clients were on the line getting a busy signal until finally one told him what was going on? So, check your phone system periodically. Check your receptionist service and do that secret shopping periodically. I highly recommend that to make sure that your calls are being handled the way that you expect them to be. Also, you want to be very careful about, making sure you have access to data. How are you tracking your marketing ROI? Are you able to see the calls that are coming in from your marketing channels and distinguish them from other channels? Routing and tracking services. So if you just have a phone service that is masking your number on your website and it's a click to call, make sure that you are presenting a phone number or ways to track it that, when people are not on their phones, if they're actually on their desktop, click to call does not track those calls because people are not clicking on a phone number on their desktop. So make sure that it's both desktop and mobile friendly. Yes, mobile is big, but desktop is still prevalent for people browsing, especially if you have an older clientele. For receptionist services, you want to make sure that their impact is as great as possible. So not looking at services that are just answering your calls, really that's kind of old hat. You want to make sure that they are, handling an entire workflow, that they have an API integration, as I mentioned before, and that you are, not having calls drawn out, and that if there is a longer call, it's because more is being done on the call. You also want to make sure that they're adhering to your directions very accurately and consistently, and that it is very professional. So again, US-based receptionists are always my recommendation, especially with folks who are paying a lot of money oftentimes for legal services. They expect an in-house feel. Now, email systems are pretty self-explanatory. We all know how to use email. So really, it's about leveling up your email. You want to make sure that you're getting, contact form completions, that you have your CRM connected so your contacts are synced, and that any marketing campaigns, you have the ability to mask your business email as the sender if you're sending lead nurture drips. And that you are, if you need to send out a lot of emails, that you have a tool for sending bulk emails that are customized by merge fields. So if you're sending these lead nurture drips and you're not saying, hi, Maddie, thanks for your call the other day, I believe that we could help you with XYZ legal issue. Here's time to schedule on my calendar. If you don't say, the person's name in the salutation, it's not personalized, that is not going to improve your chances for conversion. So a lot of these tools that have merge fields will sync with your email, allow you to draft it in your email, and then drop in a spreadsheet that basically pulls the correct information into each field so you can customize them, but so it's done efficiently. Now, in terms of text messages, there are a lot of solutions that are available to attorneys. I don't want to go through all of these right now because you can review this at a later time, but you should be able to crawl through your text messages and log that as billable time. I think that's very important. That is time that you're spending with clients oftentimes via text message, and it is billable time. So make sure that you have a text system in place that is logging that time for you and connecting back to your CRM. And obviously your invoice software. Now, in terms of web chat, another way to capture leads, another way to make sure that you're being responsive. This can be done through chatbots, or it can be done through humans, or a combination of both. So the benefit of the chatbot is that it's very low cost. It's easy to put in place. You just get a little code on your website. It's totally hands-on. You're in control 100%, but that also means that you and your staff are manning the chatbot, or it's just basic Q&A and it's got limited impact. Now, you can also opt for a human-based chat where you have a real-life person who is staffing it. We're actually about to launch this service ourselves using our receptionist, but there are other services that are available that you can look into. And what you end up getting is the experience of a receptionist for your website visitors. And this can help navigate them to your contact form, to your consultation, online link for booking, people who need to ask questions about whether or not, they're qualifying, whether or not you are the right attorney for them. They can answer basic questions about the firm to help determine whether or not that's a good potential client. And then obviously there are solutions for combining both of these situations. So for example, you can have a human staffing the chat, during business hours, and then after hours have kind of basic stock answers to questions, links to your online calendar and other provisions so that, certain conversations can move forward. Phone numbers and emails are captured of people who are interested in your legal services that reach you after hours or come to your site after hours. But during business hours, you're still getting that, highly responsive, excellent level of service with a human. Now, when we talk about software, it's not just, virtual receptionists, but how are these clients handled with, your existing software? So are you logging them in a CRM? You would be surprised how often I still hear at this day how many people are still using spreadsheets, or they don't feel like their business is ready for a CRM, or they haven't decided yet. It's in this day and age, there's a lot of information out there. So reach out to people who are consultants in the field, or Maria and I are both available to help you pick the right CRM. But make sure that you are doing this, because it will make your life a lot easier, and they are quite affordable, for the smaller firms with the small user numbers, to make sure that, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. It also allows you to capture these leads if you're using a marketing automation software, so that you can, when you do get an email or a phone call from someone and that's captured and they don't book a consultation with you right away, they need to think about it. You're following up with them, and that's automated. It's not something that you need to remember to do. And if you're not accepting, online bill pay, that is something I highly recommend that you look into. Again, that will integrate with your CRM, so you're totally in sync at all times. Now, how do we put all this together? Well, we're combining like human and machine intelligence, right? Like that's what this all comes down to. We've got the human intelligence where you have, someone who's friendly answering your calls, answering your web chats. Your calls are routed correctly to those individuals. So let's say it's just the, new leads who are answering, who are getting the receptionist. Then you're qualifying them based on the custom criteria. This is all done by a human being. They're listening, they're responding. They're not, some scripted call center robot, frankly. That's not a great experience. You really want to be having someone on the phone where the client or potential client feels like they're being heard, and like the answers they're receiving are customized to their situation. With machine intelligence, again, Maria and I have both talked about the fact that you want systems that have APIs in place. You want to make sure that the intake forms are accessible to the receptionist. So even if you don't embed them on your website, make sure that a public link to it is available so that the receptionists have access to it and can complete it on the behalf of the caller. So that is another important factor. And then how are the leads and clients being recorded and tracked? Is it consistent? Do you have different intake forms for different specialty areas? Most likely you do, and you should. And then what happens after intake, and what happens if the lead doesn't convert? So we talked about that marketing automation. And then in terms of what happens after intake, what's the process? What is that meeting? When does it need to occur? Make sure that these things are automated within your system so that it's a consistent approach every time. Now, how do you kind of get started with this? I'm going to move this over, and we're going to, again, move quickly because I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we've got 15 minutes. So you really want to take time to do this thought exercise. So who are your favorite clients? Who are the potential clients that you want? Who do you want to attract, and who do you want to filter out? And identify these common qualities and base your questions, your lead qualification criteria questions around that. How are you going to filter them out? So for example, you want to make sure that you provide information to set expectations on how you work, your availability, who's accepting new clients in your firm, and what fees they can expect, because frankly, oftentimes it does come down to money. And then also, are you looking to get a lot of clients and you're more open to taking just about, any client that meets certain criteria? Or are you looking to really drill down into fewer clients that are the exact sort of client that you want? What sort of work-life balance do you want? How much are you going to be working? And then the, any expansion or contraction plans that you have. So are you marketing now? Are you, looking to expand your revenue? Are you looking to expand to a new branch or open a new office? These are all things to consider. Now, the process. So let's say the lead passes the criteria. Do you have a callback or an appointment? Are these consultations free or paid? How long are they? What is the format? So is there Skype? Is there video chat? Is it in person? Is it by phone? Are you going to call them, or are they going to call you? All of these things, it may seem just so basic, or it may seem like, man, why didn't I think about that? But if you have a dedicated Skype line set up, or if you have a dedicated appear in line set up just for onboarding, and you prefer to have video because it creates a stronger personal connection, and you've found that leads to more clients hiring you. Like, these are all factors that you should consider, and it's not minor. And if you're doing a free consultation, how long is it? If you're doing a paid consultation, how long is it? And how do you make sure in these calendar, confirmations that you're going to send to new clients via email that you convey this information? Because again, it's how are you driving client satisfaction now at this point? Now, you want to outsource the process as much as possible, and the receptionist can handle almost all of this that we've talked about for you. Obviously not setting your questions, but going through the criteria that you set. If there are inbound calls that are coming in, the receptionist will follow the workflow. If there are outbound calls that are coming in, if there are outbound calls that you need to make, then how can you have the receptionist handle those? Well, let's say that you have contact form completions that are being made and they're being sent to your email. You can have those forwarded to your receptionist service with instructions to call back that lead immediately, because maybe you're busy all day, and using a receptionist service to call back that lead allows you to drive faster responsiveness and hopefully capture and qualify that new client. So then once the call is done, we've talked about these workflows, that information gets passed to a new calendar event. You see that information, you see it logged in your CRM, you see the new intake form, and then all the information is there and ready for you when you create that new matter. Now, when you're handing off intake, the first stage obviously is the basic intake. Your receptionist service is not going to intake like a full, medical history for someone with a, disability or social security or a personal injury or something like that. But they can ask basic questions that are within reason for, a fairly brief phone call, so that you're not, paying a ton for this information that's not even appropriate to answer over the phone, like a full medical intake form. But you are able to get the information that you need to prepare properly for the first client call. So, the first 5 questions are going to be basic contact information. And then the next 5 questions are, deal breaker questions. So, are these intake forms customized for different practice areas? Yes, they should be. So, what are the targeted questions for family law for a new client who needs to get a divorce, for example, versus Social Security disability? Those questions are going to be very different. So I always recommend, having these different intake forms set up so that your receptionist service is asking only a few questions, but those answers that come through are really important for you to know before you speak with this person. You want to balance, as I mentioned, completeness and complexity with cost and necessity. And you can also, on your website, embed a document upload option if they're uploading medical records. The receptionists are never going to see that. But if there are links like that, then, that does limit the ability for the receptionist to do that, because they would then just be helping the client navigate to that page on your website. Whereas if it's just form completions and text fields, they can take all of that information over the phone on behalf of the client. So that's something to consider. And then always ask the lead for how they heard about your law firm, because that is essential information. Maybe you want to thank someone, maybe you have a referral fee to pay out yourself. And you want to make sure that you're with your marketing campaigns, that you're capturing all the information on whether or not those are effective or how people are hearing about you, so that you can double down on those channels that are best for you. Obviously, if the lead turns into a client and that's the type of client that you want. Now, the second stage is obviously completing the intake. So things to consider are timing. Is it after the appointment is booked? Is it after the first consultation? Is it after a signed agreement? What is the communication method? Is it in person that this full intake is completed? What is the form of the intake process? Is it a Word doc? Is it PDF? Is it a Google form that you're using? Obviously, it could be hosted within your software, but make sure obviously that it is secure. And then, is it embedded in your site, or is it a download? Obviously, we strongly recommend that it's linked to, your CRM. Most intake software does link to a CRM via API. And then, what is the assignment? Who is doing this? Is it outsourced? Probably not when it's full intake. And then, is there a signature requirement? Are you using HelloSign or DocuSign or another system like that? And again, that should connect back up to your CRM. And maybe your CRM even offers, a kind of a native signature process. Now, I have some forms that are listed here. I encourage you to check these out after the webinar. I'm not going to go through them, but they do give examples of different very clever approaches to intake, both basic and complete. So one of the things I will encourage you to look at is this traffic ticket estimate request form. This woman, Amy, she is an attorney who has a basic traffic ticket estimate on her website, and it basically becomes a new client lead generation method. So consider kind of clever methods like that. This other site from G-City Legal, there's an attorney there by the name of Connor Malloy, and he has set up an eviction notice that basically people can complete the eviction notice, download it, it gets submitted, and then that lead is added to their database. So this is kind of passively collecting people who are potential new clients who have a need for an eviction notice, and you think, okay, well, that says to me that they are a landlord. So what does that mean? They're going to need services in the future. Now, the fourth step is to streamline the appointment scheduling. Make sure that you have an online calendar and that it is available on your website, or at least to your receptionist. Calendly is a free option, and it sits on top of your Google, iCalendar, Outlook. I recommend looking at that if you're just taking the first step. There are many other solutions available. There are even in-house, kind of native calendar solutions for certain law practice management software that you may also use. And you can use receptionists here to not only, book appointments, but also reminders. So calling outbound and reminding people of their appointments to reduce cancellations and no-shows. The step 5, minimize your wasted time. So make sure that you are only focusing on those tasks that are most valuable to you, and that you are outsourcing or eliminating less valuable tasks. So that means better filtering leads, and also not being the initial person who talks to them. Have a receptionist service make those outbound or receive those inbound calls for you. It is possible to have someone else help you with those and have it feel like an in-house experience that is delivering the quality that you would give personally. Absolutely accept online payments. I mean, it's just going to result in much higher collection rates. And obviously a lot of these services now will integrate with your calendaring software. So if you have a first-time consultation, any software that you're using for calendaring should also have a payment option so that you can collect payment for that first-time consultation and you're not invoicing people. And then obviously you can outsource like the collection of deposits and retainers and invoices to receptionists. You can even give them a list of clients to call who are late on their payment and follow up, because obviously that is a pain and another drag on your time. Step 6, monetizing those bad leads. I talked about this already. There's a link here about referral fee do's and don'ts. I highly recommend that you check the rules in your state before starting to accept referral fees, because some of them are quite substantial, and also, make you liable for certain like malpractice and things like that. You just need to be aware of. But they can be upwards of 40%, so it's definitely something to pursue, or at least look into. And then obviously integrating your communications within your existing system. So, can you call and text within your CRM? So you've got contacts in your CRM. Can you communicate with them through that method? We talked a lot about how the receptionist can update and add new records and log call notes, but certain things like a new lead can also trigger a workflow. So maybe there's information on how to get the most out of your consultation when a new appointment is booked. That is information that you can include in an email that's automatically triggered to anyone who books a new consultation with you. That's just an example. And then obviously project and document management, email integration, signature integration, all of these things should be connected to your system, so you're not having to download and attach files. They're automatically connected to each matter. I do have a link here that goes to Cheese City Legal, and that blog post is all about automating your small business, and it's specifically about legal. So how is Connor at Cheese City Legal automating through the use of receptionists and software to streamline completely his qualification intake and client management process? Think about your operations. So are you recording calls for better note taking? Are you using conference call convening so you're not waiting on the line? That's something that we offer, and that other services offer. We can collect all the attendees for you and then call you when everyone is on the line, so that you are not hanging out waiting on that line when you could be spending that time doing other things. And then how are you being notified when updates are made to this your matters, or a new lead comes in? There's a call transfer request for you. It doesn't always have to ring you. It could be through Slack or text message, etc. Also consider, marketing and new business growth tracking. So if you have marketing campaigns, make sure that you're assigning specific phone numbers to those channels so you can track the calls that are coming in. Otherwise, it's very hard to determine the ROI. The higher responsiveness you have, and obviously that's facilitated by receptionist services, the higher your conversion is going to be. It's as simple as that. Do not let those marketing channels, leads, go to voicemail. Don't let them hang out in your email. Now, I know that we are about up in time, but I just want to say, we've given a lot of information, and what are the next steps, right? So like, here's the action plan. Really determine the 5 to 10 preliminary qualification questions that you use. If you have your special sauce and you're ready to start outsourcing it, like write those down and define them clearly and test it out and make sure that it is what you do and it is going to work when you outsource it to a receptionist. Focus on those must-haves, not on like the nice-to-haves. That critical information that will allow you to filter out the bad leads from the good. Create a basic shareable intake form and then customize them for specific practice areas, and define the qualification and intake processes and steps that you will continue doing, that you can streamline with existing or new technology that you're going to implement, that you can automate, that you can outsource. So those are the 4 categories that you need to consider. And then you're going to prioritize fixes based on what takes you the most time and what's most urgent. So there's a link here to the Eisenhower decision matrix. That's a way to make decisions based on urgency and importance. I highly recommend that you check that out. And then, I would just say like lead qualification, payment collection, those are time consuming and the most easily outsourced. Call routing, data entry, lead follow-up are the most easily automated. Again, via API, via, automated reminders. And then implement that new intake and qualification process in the next 30 to 60 days. Like really put this on your to-do list, and then wait for things to kind of restabilize. Say like, okay, how is this impacting my business? And then what are the things I'm going to tackle next? So maybe quarterly, you kind of have a little sit down with yourself or with your team and you say, what are the things we're doing well? What are the things we implemented and how has that impacted us? And then what are the next things that we're going to do to even level up further? Maria?
Hey there. So sorry, I had my mic turned off in case of feedback. But yeah, so coming up next, everyone can definitely stay tuned for a PracticePanther and Smith.ai integration, which we're extremely excited about, because a lot of what we covered and talked about in the beginning of the presentation when it comes to kind of establishing this sort of seamless transition between your client intake and then your client services throughout the matter, that integration is really going to allow law firms to provide that really seamless experience to clients. And by kind of streamlining as many clerical and administrative processes as possible through a virtual receptionist service combined with a practice management solution, the efficiency is going to be through the roof. And the billable hours worth of time saved by not having to dedicate otherwise billable hours to these tasks will really, I think, kind of more than balance out the value of investing in these 2 systems or 2 systems like this, because time that could otherwise be spent dedicated to practicing law, but is instead kind of swallowed up by calendaring or by lead generation or by, the many, many small steps to following through with a legal procedure these steps are not going to be automated. So that time is now going to be served towards doing what you do best and what you probably would rather be doing, which is practicing law. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maria. Are there any other questions?
As far as questions I have, I guess the only question that I really have is, I know you mentioned sort of the in-house feel of a receptionist, and what like if you had to give some major criteria, what do you think really determines that sort of in-house receptionist feel?
Yeah, well, I would say, making sure that the service that you choose, they're hiring people who have customer service and hospitality backgrounds, because obviously you want someone who's friendly and professional and cheerful. Not like, phony cheerful, but just, naturally cheerful and professional. And you want, folks, again, who are US based. You want really crisp quality phone calls. So, if someone is making calls on your behalf and it sounds like they're at a train station, not a good choice. If you feel like a call center in the background, not a good choice. So, you want to make sure that like it is an excellent, like technical quality. And you also, I would say, want to make sure that they are well-versed in American norms and business practices, that they sound like someone who would be at your firm, and that you are equipping them with information that you would expect an in-house receptionist to have about your firm. So, customizing your greeting and equipping them with information about, you and any other partners that are in your firm, the different roles that people have, who's taking new clients, who isn't, what types of, practice areas they're in. All that information can be provided to the receptionist service and then relayed by them to the callers, so that, they are providing information that you would expect when you're a new caller calling a law firm. They should be equipped with that information, and you should never hear from a service like, no, we are not going to customize things for you to that degree.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for that. I mean, that's the only major question I had. I do see a question here about the PowerPoint's availability for download. And if you would like a downloadable version of this presentation, then we can definitely send it to you via email. You're more than welcome to email either Maddie or myself directly. My personal email is mbarbera@practicepanther.com. And we can definitely send you the deck. Otherwise, this presentation will be recorded and will be set to be seen at your convenience whenever you want. Just go ahead and use that registration link, to access it. And should you ever have any trouble accessing it, please feel free to reach out and let us know, and we'll definitely set you up with that.
Oh yeah, and Maria, just one other thing. So folks, just check out this slide that you can see on my screen. If you go to bit.ly/law firm revamp with dashes in between, that's the link to this deck. So you will be able to access all of those links that I mentioned, the entire deck. It'll be totally available for you. It's just on Google Drive. So you can download it from there. You will be able to view it. It's not going to expire at any time. It's yours to look at anytime.
Absolutely. And so thank you all so much for joining us. As far as the CLE credit opportunity, this presentation is, of course, certified for CLE, and you can definitely receive the accreditation for the CLE. So what I will do right now is I will give you the reference number so that you can go ahead and submit it. So just to give you a little bit of information in case you don't remember from the email, this presentation is certified for 1 general CLE credit, including 1 technology CLE credit. So I'm going to go ahead and read out the reference number so that you can go ahead and submit it. So the reference number is 1806234N as in Nancy. I'll read it one more time. 1806234N as in Nancy. I'll also go ahead and write it in the chat right now so that you can kind of double check. Right. And if for whatever reason you guys ever have any questions about the CLE or anything comes up with that, please feel free to reach out to me or Maddie, and we can definitely get you all set up. So thank you again so much.
There's our email, you guys. So anyone who needs to record that, you can just write that down right now or access the deck later. But that's our contact information.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Maddie, for all of the information. This was an incredible presentation, and you definitely spearheaded it. So thank you very much. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions you might have or about either our respective systems or the functionality of anything we discussed today. Thank you so much.